I also think nowadays messaging, like doing text messaging to meet people or going on LinkedIn and putting a
Hmm.
text message into the message box and
Hmm.
reaching out to people, not to pitch, because that's the biggest mistake people make on LinkedIn,
Right.
not to pitch, but to reach out to people and make a significant connection.
Welcome to the Expert in You podcast, the show where we have real conversations with established founders, firm owners, and B2B experts selling their expertise as services. We talk about what's happening now inside experienced businesses where positioning, influence, and growth directly affect opportunities and contracts. I'm Ann Carden. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. I'm your host, Ann Carden, and this is going to be a great conversation today. I have a total pro with me, David Saxby. Welcome to my show.
Good to be here. Thanks, Ann, for having me on the show.
Yes. So today we are going to talk about speaking and using speaking in your business to drive revenue. And David is literally a pro. He's done over 2,500 presentations. He's a speaker, a coach, a consultant. He's the CEO of Spark Communications. And we're going to dive into how he has used speaking, what he does today in the marketplace, and just get into the weeds a little bit with how you can use your voice. And when I say speaking, I'm talking about things. It can be anything from running your own virtual rooms or live rooms. It can be running your own events. It can be guesting on a podcast, hosting a show. There's so many ways in the marketplace today that we can speak, right, David?
Absolutely.
We've never had so many ways, in fact.
Well, and that can be a challenge as well, because it's hard to be able to be an expert in all those areas, but there's so many opportunities out there now to use your voice to make a living.
Absolutely. So before we dive into some of the really fun stuff, just give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got into what you were doing and even what you do today.
Well, I got out of college as an advertising guy and started working with an advertising agency back in the 70s. So if people have seen the television show Mad Men, the lead character was what I did for a living.
Oh, okay.
And I worked for an agency for a couple of years, had a discussion with the boss that kind of went, David, you're a bright young man, very talented. You'll do well on your own. And so at a very young age, I wound up starting my own agency, just a small startup agency, thinking that I'd go back and get another job. I grew that up in a very short period of time. And then we had a big recession in Alberta. Pretty well wound up in a position where I just about lost everything. I'd done what most business people did when you got successful. I grew my business very quickly and took over a 1,200 square foot space in downtown Edmonton at the time and hired 6 staff, bought a new condo, bought a new BMW because every yuppie needed a BMW in those days. And then when the recession hit, like I said, just about lost everything. And I thought there's got to be more to business than just having a talent or a skill. So I decided that I better start learning some things about business. Went out and took accounting programs, HR programs, sales training, and the list went on and on. And that's what led me into speaking. I wound up taking an effective speaking course. And I remember at the time, I was quite shy and introverted when I first got into the industry. I was not
I
a
was going to say most people are afraid to public, like what is it? Public speaking is right up. They're more scared to public speak than to die or something.
yeah, the expression is people would rather be in the coffin than deliver the eulogy.
There you go. That's what it is. Yes.
So I decided that if I was going to be any success, have a success in the business, I had to learn how to speak. So I went in, took the course. At the end of the course, the fellow leading the course said, I'd like you to lead the next one. I went, no, I've got the notes and I'm good. Thanks very much. And he said, no, I'd like you to lead the next one. He said, I'll lead it with you so that we can work together. Led the course. At the end of the course, he said, I'd like you to lead the next program. And I went, we've already had this conversation. I've led the program. I'm done. And he said, no, you have to lead the program. I said, what do you mean I have to? He said, you're the only guy that knows the program. I'm leaving the country. And that was my introduction into speaking and training. So then I realized, hey, this could be an interesting way to attract clients. So I started going out and doing presentations at various networking groups and so on. And then people started to approach me and say, would you come and speak to our association? Can we bring you in and train you? I think it was about 5 years into business. I wound up getting hired by one of the banks in Canada here to do business training. And so that became a 5-year revenue stream from doing
That's
business
great.
training. Yeah, and what was interesting out of it was that I was getting clients because I was speaking about marketing and sales and various aspects of business. And then the light went on and I went, hey, I could do speaking and get paid for speaking, and I can build clients. So after the big recession here, I started looking at my business and I went, okay, the structure, the way advertising works, it was a 15% commission on media sold. That's how agencies made their living. But when the recession hit, the media started going direct to clients and cutting the agency out or reducing their commissions down. And I looked at that and went, okay, this is not going to be a sustainable way of doing business. What else can I do? And it was right about that time that a client of mine I was working with was doing practice management for lawyers. And he said, the way your business is set up, he said, I could see if you could add a couple of services to your business, we could grow this substantially. And I said, well, let's talk. Right at that time was when the laws were changing regarding legal practices. And, professional practice. So for the first time, they were able to advertise. So we started working together, built the firm up, and we positioned the firm just like a legal practice. So same structure, same billing, and so on. I built the firm up again with 2 partners, and we grew from 4 people to 23 people. And I used speaking as a way of attracting clients. So literally tripled the revenue in about 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah, I love that.
And then I sold my business to my partner. She wanted to be the head of the company. And I said, well, that's easy. Cut me a check. So at that point, I went, hold on a second here. I could use my marketing skills to build a speaking business. And right around that time was when we formed a professional organization for speakers in Canada called KEPS. And I looked at that and I went, okay, there's a pretty substantial market out there to hire keynote speakers and trainers and so on. So when I flipped the formula around, I used marketing to build my speaking business. I started landing some pretty substantial contracts. And then presentation technology was just coming into the fold as well. And what I did was I looked at that and I said, okay, there's companies out there that need to do public presentations, particularly public companies that raise funds. So I started working with public companies and training the CEOs and CFOs to do presentations, as well as building their presentation. And that grew the company again from that perspective. And then when we founded the Speakers Association, I realized that a number of speakers had to learn how to do this as well. So I started working with speakers to build their presentations and coach them in using technology. So again, that grew the business. And so it was a situation where looking at strategy, which is one of the things I talk to clients about, what is something that's going on in the market that you can take advantage of? And can you use speaking to teach people or share with people the ideas and the concepts on how they can grow their business or improve their position in the marketplace by becoming notable.
Right. That's what brought you to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from that situation, of course, I wound up landing some significant clients. I had one client that I did we were talking about this earlier, I did a pilot presentation for, literally. And the guys that saw the program said, you got to talk to our boss. That boss hired me. I came in and did a pilot program for the company. And his presentation to me was, he said, basically, if you can do a pilot and we like it, we'll hire you to do other work. So that lasted 4 years working with that company, delivering 8 some odd programs for them to.
Can you think of the revenue with that particular company if you had to do the math?
Yeah, that became a $40,000 contract per year over the 4 year
for 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was approached by a pharmaceutical company to work with psychiatrists and teaching them presentation skills and
Mm,
helping them build presentations. And that again turned into a 4-year contract. And while I was doing that with one pharmaceutical company, I got approached by another one to do
mhm.
the same thing. So over a 4-year period, I worked with 2 pharmaceutical companies to do presentations. And so again, similar
Yeah.
kind of revenue.
That's a great thing about when we talked about this earlier, especially when you get into the corporate sector. One presentation can lead to so much business, and they'll keep you on. And one of the things I do want to hit on, actually, a couple of things I want to hit on that you talked about is you had a back end something to sell. And so many people do not approach speaking with something on the back end that can really bring in significant revenue. So they're looking for speaker fees to build the business. And that can be a long, hard road, first of all, because it's all dependent on really, in so many ways, trading time for money. And you will tap out or you will max out. So I am not about building a speaking business. I'm about building a business with speaking. And today, when we talk about speaking, I want to talk about just using your voice, because speaking to me is any way that you're using your voice to drive your business. So whether that's
Absolutely.
a podcast, guesting on podcasts, running virtual rooms, running live rooms, speaking on stages, speaking to other people's audiences, whatever it is, using your voice, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about speaking. A lot of people think of speaking as getting on big stages, speaking at big conferences. I personally, David, have found that small rooms have produced the most revenue. I would love to know if you have found that same thing. Often the big stages, there's not the same connection. Now, you can do breakout rooms, right? So if you're running a breakout room, probably more of the revenue comes from the breakout room when you are doing that. So again, I have found small rooms to be better for revenue producing. How about you?
Yeah, I think the challenge, and when you're talking about speaking at conferences, a lot of speakers think, oh, I'll do the keynote because that's the
Mhm.
most recognizable, biggest revenue.
Is that an ego play, do you think, more than?
There's some of that.
Yeah,
And conferences generally pay the keynote speaker more than they'll pay a breakout
right.
speaker. But you're absolutely right. The challenge with the keynote is once you've done a keynote for an organization, unless you travel across the country or the world to do the same keynote in different locations,
Mhm.
then it's kind of one and done.
Yes.
It's the challenge with that, of course, then you got to find another audience. And I remember when the National Speakers Association started up in the States, I went down to some conferences there, and one of the guys was bragging about the fact that he'd done 250 keynotes in a year. And I said,
Oh
well,
my gosh,
you
that's a
know,
grind.
oh, yeah. And I mean, just the sheer
Mm.
issue with travel and everything else.
Hmm.
So what I look to do, and my formula has been more about, can I get into a conference and do a keynote or a breakout?
Hmm.
If they are looking at doing a keynote, can I also do a breakout or several breakouts? So it saves them money
Yes.
because they're not paying 3 speakers. But from that, you're absolutely right with breakouts. Most of the time, it's more intimate. You can do more
Yes.
discussion than you can in a keynote, and people can ask specific questions. And
Hmm.
if you can answer those questions effectively as a good presenter, then those people will be interested in having a conversation afterwards and
Yes,
hiring
exactly.
you to do something. So
Yes.
oftentimes when I speak at a conference, I may do a keynote or breakout. And then when I leave the conference, I'll do some training maybe for the company. I'll
Hmm.
sell some of my services, coaching or consulting. I'll have some product, maybe some books or those sorts of things. I used to sell CDs. Those don't sell very often anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So the idea of, like you say, doing a breakout, there's nothing wrong with that. And it can be a lot more effective with gaining additional business.
Hmm.
So most people, we were talking about this earlier, is most people would rather be in the coffin than deliver the eulogy. So one of the things that I often do is I work with business owners to teach them how to be a
Hmm.
more efficient and effective presenter so that when they do get the opportunity, they don't get up and get all nervous and worried
Right.
about, what they're going to say. They're prepared to present.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of options. And I remember one conference where I spoke, I got, $10,000 for a keynote, but out of that, I got the opportunity to also do additional training work.
Right.
And
So that was the bigger play. Absolutely. But that came out of the breakout. Did that come out of the breakout or did that come out of the keynote?
it was actually out of a keynote presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of the keynote, you did get that training opportunity. Yeah.
But more often, like you say, doing a breakout session where you can actually be more intimate with your audience, a small group, answer questions, speak specifically about a person's business, because one of the challenges when you deliver a keynote, generally the information you're delivering is to tell people what the issue is,
Right.
not so much how to do or create the
So they
result.
still need that deeper work with you. I always feel like, if you don't have something on the back end, you are leaving people hanging in a way. To me, you're not giving your best because people need more. You're not going to be transformed from a keynote.
No.
Just like you aren't transformed really from a book in most cases. There has to be more.
Yeah. So the keynote is basically telling people what. So what's
Right.
going on in the industry, what's going on in the world, what the issues and challenges are. Breakout is to get people to look at changing behavior.
Right.
And then from there, it's how do you implement it? Well, that's the coaching and consulting side. How do you solve their problems?
Now you've delivered, you said over 2,500 presentations. I know I've spent thousands of hours to virtual stages, live stages, just over. We've been in business about the same time. So about 40 years, I've been doing this forever, grew a lot of businesses with speaking, but I see over and over again, a lot of people are chasing the stage and they don't realize the opportunities that are sitting right in front of them in the virtual world. And here's the other thing. I see a lot of people, and I did this for years. I didn't have the same background as you. I knew that getting out there and building awareness and visibility and letting people see who I was and talking about my business would grow my business, and it would grow it over time. But that was a very long way of thinking. It was long-term thinking, and it did compound and it did work. But what I have found in the marketplace today, and really over the past 15 years, I discovered this when I ran my first little bitty room with 10 people and I had a $60,000 day. And I thought, okay, there's more to this speaking thing than the way I've been treating it. And that's when I started looking at everything I was doing and how it drove revenue and how to turn it into immediate ROI. I'm curious, you're a marketing and sales guy too. One of the big things that I see is people are taught to build their email list. So like go out and speak and build your email list. I personally have found that to be not a very good path. I'm curious about what you think around that because people get lost in the email. You have to maybe nurture them forever. So I'm not saying that long-term that can't compound, but I'm about immediate revenue and ROI. What about you?
Well, I tell people when I'm talking about marketing that marketing is not an event. It doesn't happen once and everything comes in the door and you retire. It's about putting together the right strategies and using the right tools to be able to create momentum in the market. So email is simply one tool. And usually with email, people make the mistake of sending out an email to pitch products or services. And most people unsubscribe when they get that. If you can provide useful and helpful information and get people to subscribe to a newsletter, then you can build an ongoing relationship. Because the biggest challenge in marketing these days is building a significant relationship with people who eventually buy. So email's one. Cold calling still works. It's still a challenge for most people. Being able to do things like this, do a podcast nowadays seems to be very popular and a useful way to teach people some skills or share stories with people so that eventually they'll do some business with you. But I think from a marketing perspective, we first have to look at it and just say, okay, where is our audience at?
Right.
Are they podcast and webinar to death? Have they been emailed to death? And I look at my inbox, I get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day, usually somebody trying to pitch. When I see one that I learned from, I go, okay, I'm going to stay subscribed. So I also think nowadays messaging, like doing text messaging to meet people, or going on LinkedIn and putting a
Mhm.
text message into the message box and
Mhm.
reaching out to people, not to pitch, because that's the biggest mistake people make on LinkedIn,
Right.
not to pitch, but to reach out to people and make a significant connection.
Mhm.
What is it you have in common? It could be even something not related to business. It could be a hobby, a sport,
Mhm.
a common interest, and get to know people. And then in the conversation, talk about your business to see if there's a fit. Because
Yeah.
that's the biggest challenge is there a fit for what I do with your business?
One of the things I see is people don't often turn their speaking and their voice into a system where their revenue is consistent. And they don't realize that they literally can drive their revenue if they just create the system. And I say you have to create the system with everything you're doing. So if you're guesting on podcasts, how can you create the system so that you're actually generating revenue from it, or hosting a show, or running virtual events? And most people don't do that. I'm curious what you would say about that too, because if you want something consistent and predictable, you have to keep doing it, and you have to do the math, and you have to figure out how many of these do I have to do, right? And a lot of people don't do that. I'm curious your thoughts around that.
Absolutely. The biggest thing is consistency and congruency as well.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that you do should fit with your brand. And I see a lot of speakers make this mistake. I see a lot of businesses make this mistake, is they try to be all things to all people.
Mm-hmm.
And which means you're nothing to nobody.
Right.
Because you're not standing out in the market. So creating a system, whether it's like what I do, which is if I get a chance to speak at a conference, whether I'm doing a breakout or a keynote, then lead to something else, whether it's coaching, training, or something that I do in my business. And then from there, how do you build a consistency ongoing while staying in touch with your customers? I've had customers come back 4 years after we finished doing business because we've done everything we needed, and ask if I can coach them. We were doing some marketing work, but can I coach them? So having that system in place, in my business, for instance, from a coaching perspective, the same thing happens in speaking. If you're coaching one-on-one, you only got so many hours in a day that you can coach. So
Right.
what I did with my coaching business is I created an online system for kind of a do-it-yourself marketing and sales program. So people can go in there, they can sign up for it, they can do the coaching on their own, and then I just check in with them once a month and see where they're at, see if they have questions, and then if they need some consulting work, I'll do that.
Hi, friend. I have an exciting announcement. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Expert in You podcast, but I have to ask you, have you checked out the latest issue of Expert in You magazine yet? It's jam-packed with rich content, powerful strategies, inspiring stories, and so much more to help you elevate your business and personal growth. Don't miss out. Go grab your digital copy now and join our community of experts making a difference every day. Go to expertinyoumagazine.com and check out your digital copy today. Transform your expertise into success with Expert in You magazine. It's not just a publication, it is a movement.
And how do you get those people? Do you speak, or how do you bring those clients in?
Well, and that's the thing, it comes from a number of different directions. Some of it comes from my newsletter, some of it comes from LinkedIn, where I'm making connections or people reach out to me. Some of it comes from a speaking engagement. Some also comes from networking. So if you're out networking, don't pitch people at the networking event. Find out if there's a need,
Right.
conversation, and then carry that over into a meeting afterwards to
Yeah.
determine if there's an actual need and the person can afford your services, and so on. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge for most people is how do you build that system
Mm-hmm.
and how do you be consistent?
Yes. Absolutely. And here's the thing, everything works when you get it working, right? When you get it working, it's rinse and repeat. And I help clients get one thing working and then we add on and we create the next
Absolutely.
thing. And that's what a lot of people are kind of like spray and pray. And even in their speaking, I always say they're out there hope marketing. They're building what I did when I first started. Okay, I want awareness, I want visibility, but then it wasn't really bringing immediate revenue. It was, again, it compounded over time, but it was a long play. And now there are strategies there are ways to turn that into immediate revenue and grow your business. And then you keep making what you are doing that's working, you keep making it better. You turn it into a system, but then you can add the next thing and then you get that system working. And here's something that people need to understand is you should never have just one way that you're bringing in revenue. That is that's a dangerous game in business. You need to have multiple ways that are predictable and consistent to bring in revenue. And I think that that's also a missing piece for a lot of people. For example, we saw it with people that were only out there speaking on stages. That was their whole business. And then everything shut down during the pandemic, right? And all of a sudden these speakers are out of business and they are trying to scramble and figure out. Same way with coaches who only know how to network, and that's the only way they know how to get business. And then all that got shut down. Not saying we'll have another pandemic, but we're at risk with everything that we are doing. Even if you're doing something on LinkedIn or on Facebook, I've had my Facebook account shut down. We don't own those platforms, right? So people have to really expand their thinking and how they're bringing in business, and they need to get each of those things working. And to me, the best method is when you can get them feeding each other. You do a LinkedIn Live and it feeds a virtual event, or you're on LinkedIn and you're doing something there and you're getting people on your podcast. And then, all those things can stack and they feed each other, but it's such a different way to think about your revenue and what you're doing. I think most people don't think deeper about the revenue they're driving. They accept every opportunity that comes their way, whether it's aligned, whether it fits their goals. And I actually turn away probably more opportunities than I accept. How about you, David?
Yeah, I have to agree with everything you've said from a perspective of, start with one thing that, first of all, is probably going to garner most of your market. Or reach out to a majority of your market. Start with that, get it built, and then look at other options. So whether it's email marketing, and then you follow up by doing things like a podcast or a webinar, and then you go to LinkedIn messaging, or getting the system in place, or figuring out where you can do the most work to garner the type of client that you want. And then the other thing is all things to all people. I remember some speakers when I first got into the speaking industry that had like 170 programs they delivered on everything in the spectrum. And one guy,
oh my gosh, that
a
just
friend
makes
of
my
mine,
head hurt.
I said, how do you keep track of all this, first of all? And I said, second of all, isn't that exhausting trying to do all these different things? So he focused into one specific industry, and he's built a multi-million-dollar business out of doing that.
That makes such a difference. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So distracted. People get so distracted. Yeah. I always say, start with your core and then build out from that core, and make sure things, again, they feed into, they're not different. They're not disconnects. It's not like you're not running like 10 different businesses. A lot of people build their business like that. It's like they almost have 10 different businesses versus one core business where everything feeds into it. A lot of people are doing things the hard way, in my opinion. But so I do believe speaking, again, when I just want to clarify, when I'm talking to speaking, I'm not necessarily talking about speaking on stages at conferences. I'm talking about any way that you're using your voice, whatever that strategy is. I do believe it is the fastest way to build the know, like, and trust. One thing that I have found, David, is when people are high level buyers, not low ticket buyers, but high end buyers, they can see you one time and they want to do business with you if they believe that you are the person that can help them with whatever it is they need. And one of the things I've seen with low buyers is they're the ones that have to be nurtured. They're the ones that it's a long game, right? And so very different strategies when you're speaking. Are you speaking to high level buyers? Are you speaking to low buyers that you have to nurture? So many people do that. They go and speak and they sell something very low, and then they try to ascend people on the back end. I'm just the opposite. I flip that model, sell high, and then if they can't buy that, you downsell them. So much easier. What is your method?
Absolutely. I think going for the largest potential revenue aspect of things is great. And then if people can't afford that and don't want to buy it, then can you sell them something else? So in my situation with coaching in particular, I oftentimes talk to people that are looking for a coach, and I'll speak to them about one-on-one coaching, and they go, oh, well, that's too much money. So then I'll suggest that they look at maybe joining a group coaching situation so that I can work with a group of people who are just starting to get into a coaching circumstance. Or if they say, well, even that's too much money, then I'll put them on my online system where they can do things at their own pace. It's not an expensive system. And then I can check in with them and see where they're at, and do they want to join a group or do they want to do one-on-one coaching with me? And oftentimes that happens because they realize that it's overwhelming starting to understand marketing and sales, and they need a bit of incentive or a little bit of support to take it to the next level. So I think it's interesting you said that people start all these multiple businesses, because I did exactly that back in the early 2000s. But I used speaking to build the businesses. So one of the businesses I built was working with property developers and realtors in Central America to promote their projects up in Canada and the US. And so my job was basically to do a live presentation, invite people that were interested in buying or investing in the projects, and then I turned it over to the realtor. So, and I didn't get paid a speaking fee, I got paid a commission on sales. So that was one business. Another one was working in the wine industry, because I had a client that was in the wine industry. I would do presentations for the wineries and get people out to a tasting, and then that would sell product. And so I worked with an agent who brought the wine in, and then I would do presentations for the winery, or for the agent, I should say, and that would do sales. So that was another way I used speaking to earn a living, and it was a related business to a client. So I was working with the client also to do marketing.
What is your favorite strategy if you're speaking on a stage and you can't pitch? What is your favorite strategy, start to finish, that would still get people to want to buy or hire you?
Well, a simple one, and it's not as easy these days as it used to be, is to collect business cards for a free draw. So that could be a draw for a book, or in the case of...
And then do all the follow-up with those.
Yeah. Or I had DVDs and CDs that I'd sell. So I'd do a draw for, if it was a large audience, maybe 500 people or something, I'd do a draw for half a dozen people. And then from there, if people wanted to buy it, of course, they could ask me about buying the book or the CD or whatever it was, or packaging or bundling those together. And I've seen people, some speakers fairly well known, they'll sell $14,000 worth of product at the back of the room because they bundled it all together. So that could be books, tapes, or CDs, and a system or a binder of material and so on. So it can be a very effective way to selling business. But then I will also have introduce me and tell the audience that I'm a speaker, a trainer, and also a business coach and consultant. So they will do a bit of the pitch for me. And I'll just say, look, I've got material at the back. I understand you don't want me pitching it from the stage, but can you mention in the back of the room, there's this material.
Yeah. One of the things I say is you should always get paid. So if you're asked to speak for free, for them to tell you you can't sell anything or pitch anything, I would say no to those opportunities all day long. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, no. There has to be a give and take, right? I'm happy to show up and I'm happy to, but I'm not going to show up just for a lunch. I can go buy my own lunch. Thank you very much. And I have one of the things I talk about and that I use in my own business is what I call a speaking revenue floor. And every opportunity that comes my way, I scrutinize through a framework. And I also look at, will it meet my revenue floor? For me, it's about $45,000. If I do not
Okay.
believe that I will get $45,000 from that engagement, whether it's speaking on a podcast, whether it's speaking to somebody else's audience or whatever that is, if it doesn't meet that criteria that I kind of filter through, I say no. Do you have anything like that that you have in place or think about as well? Because opportunities, once you start doing things, opportunities, I mean, they just come on a daily basis, and you
Yeah.
literally could be doing a lot for staying busy, but you're not turning into business. And so I'm curious, David, if you have a filter like that or a revenue floor that you think about with every engagement you take.
Absolutely. I do get people asking if I'll speak for free, but I go through the same sort of concept that you do, which is I'll ask them, if I'm speaking for free, am I able to sell my
Mhm.
services from the platform? And if they say no, then my next question is, would you be willing to tell people that I have these services to offer? And a lot of times they will, because then they're controlling the narrative.
Mhm.
And then from there, if they don't want to do that, then I'll ask them, can I get a video, professionally done video? We
Yeah, there's
provide it for
ways
the
to
webinar.
leverage it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If they don't want to do that, then will they give me a referral to the rest of their association or their company across the country so
Mhm.
that I can get an opportunity to speak there? And if they can't do that, then I'll ask them, okay, are you bringing other speakers in, as an example? And if they are, I'll say, well, how about I do a keynote, a breakout,
Mhm.
and then I'll even come in and train your board members. If it's a not-for-profit organization, I'll talk to your board members and give them some tips and ideas on how they can market their organization to members, as an example.
Mhm.
So, and oftentimes they'll have a bit of a budget to do something like that. So I try
Yeah.
and find a number of different revenue streams that if the person says, no, we want you to speak for free, well, it's not going to be for free. It's going to be, you're going to buy something from
Exactly. You
me.
have to think this way. If you just want to be out there because you want to give back, those are not the people we're talking to here. If you want to build your business through using your voice, through speaking, through using it as a revenue driver, you have got to think differently. You've got to be strategic in how you approach every single opportunity that comes your way. And I know people that have been in business for years. I see inside a lot of people's businesses, a lot of coaches, consultants, professional service entrepreneurs. And I will tell you, so many of them will just accept any opportunity. There's no revenue play. It's all like a bit ego driven, in my opinion. And that is over time, that's just going to wear on you, but you're going to not see the business growth. And that's what I see a lot of times. When these people just don't have money, but they're the busiest people, they're the busiest entrepreneurs. So if you want to really drive your business, speaking, in my opinion, is the best way in the marketplace today, because even with AI, people are looking for real voices. We have to be able to build that know, like, and trust much faster. And the best way to do that really is through speaking, because we can't trust much else anymore with AI. I mean, if you think about it.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you say that, because even the world of marketing now, so many people are relying on AI to do all the work for them. And I tell businesses when I consult with them from a marketing perspective, is there's really three aspects to marketing. One is paid advertising or paid marketing. Another one is earned media, which is, doing things like this, getting on a podcast and getting somebody to talk to you and so on. So that's earned media. And then the other one is owned media. And that's things you control. So you can use directly. So your LinkedIn profile, you control that. Your website, you control that. And your speaking, you can control that. So those are owned approaches to marketing. So and you need a combination of all those things. There's just way too much noise out there now to be able to really effectively just do one thing and get traction.
Yeah. So good.
And the good part about speaking too, particularly doing things like podcasts or webinars, is you're not only doing it once, but it's getting shared. People are seeing it.
It's out there forever.
Yeah. And
it compounds.
Exactly.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's very different than a stage. I always say this too. That's why I believe that you need a hybrid. You need to be doing online as well as offline speaking in some form that's driving revenue. Because, for example, if you can't get on stage until June, I don't want to wait until June to get revenue from speaking, right? No, I'm going to create my own virtual room. I'm going to do my own virtual events and things like that to get that revenue. I know all my systems and what I can produce from each of those. And you don't want to be just a one-trick pony and be stuck because you're waiting on somebody else. And that's a big factor that people need to understand too. When you are only speaking to other people's audiences and you're not creating your own stage in some way, shape, or form, you are at their mercy. You just
Absolutely.
are. And you're also at their mercy with the audience and all of those things. So, you have to think differently in the marketplace today. And we've never had more opportunity. And that was really why I wanted to do this show. There's more opportunity now than there has ever been.
Yeah. But it does come down to looking at it, like you say, as a business.
That's right. And having the strategic
together.
You have to engineer the results. Yes.
Looking for various options as well. Not just a one-trick pony.
Yes.
And there's very few people out there now that only do speaking.
Yeah.
A lot of speakers now have built a business behind the system.
They've learned over time, yes. And there's a lot of people out there teaching that now as well. So yes, so much. Gosh, we have I can't believe how fast this has gone. We could probably talk about this for hours. But this has been so great, David. We will put all of your information in the show notes, but David's on LinkedIn. You can reach out to him there. Final words, or what you would leave people with around how to use speaking in their business. What would you leave them with, or what would you say?
I would say the first thing is, with speaking and using it as a way of generating revenue, is just do it. But a word of caution is, don't do it off the cuff.
Right.
Practice, get some training if you need to, and then pick an audience where there's low risk to start working with, using speaking, because you definitely don't want to be on an international stage or be on an international platform when you mess up. So you want to be able to do it consistently, do it well, and then be able to build your business from the speaking aspect of things. And I think for most businesses now, you almost need to be doing presentations, or nobody's going to know who you are or where you are or what you do.
You have to rise above the noise, and there's a lot of it. Yes, absolutely. David, thank you. So great. I appreciate you being here. This has been so much fun. And all right, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you share the show. Make sure you subscribe. And look, if you want to speak, sell, and scale, I want to invite you into an upcoming workshop where I am going to be breaking down how to make $200,000 to $1 million leaps, maybe even in 2026, with a solid speaking opportunity and engagement, and just the whole strategy behind that. So if you would like to check out that workshop, you can go to expertinyouworkshop.com. It is a curated room. There is an application to attend, but you can check that all out, and I hope to see you there. Have an amazing day. God bless you. Bye-bye.
The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Although I share strategies, ideas, and success stories based on real experiences, results are never guaranteed. Every business is unique, and outcomes depend on individual effort, market conditions, and many other factors. By listening, you agree that I and my guests are not responsible for your results or actions based on the content shared. Thank you for tuning in today. If you're as excited as I am about scaling up your influence, business, and bank account, then I have just the thing for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the show. Second, make sure you share it with someone you care about, because sharing is caring. And third, head on over to join me in my next free virtual exclusive workshop, where we'll explore proven strategies to boost your business and maximize your potential. Look, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to take your business to the next level, my workshops are designed for you. So head on over to expertinyouworkshop.com to reserve your spot and get ready to transform your expertise into extraordinary success. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and helping you achieve incredible growth. Until next time, make sure you're always seeking the expert in you, and God bless. Have an amazing day.